The Nevada desert stretched like an endless void beneath a sky so dark it seemed to swallow the stars whole. The only light came from the headlights of a single 18-wheeler cutting across the asphalt ribbon of Interstate 50, long known as the loneliest road in America. For most, it was just a name. For Hank Rollins, it was the truth. He sat behind the wheel, hunched forward, elbows resting heavy on the armrests. The dashboard's dim green glow cast shadows over the grooves and lines etched into his face, wrinkles not just from age, but from miles, a lifetime of them. His broad hands, browned by sun and worn by time, were steady on the wheel, but his mind had started to drift, somewhere far off in the places the road never seemed to touch. The cab of his truck was quiet save for the hum of the engine and the occasional rattle from the back. No music tonight. He didn't need it. The rhythm of the highway, the distant hum of rubber rolling over faded blacktop, was all the company he needed. Or so he thought. His eyes, sharp and seasoned from years of watching roads and reading storms, flicked from the mirrors to the gauges. Everything was as it should be. Fuel tank half full, oil pressure steady, speedometer coasting a few miles under the limit, textbook cruising. Outside, the desert was an ocean of darkness, flat and featureless. No moon, no stars, just that thick, suffocating black. Somewhere out there were mountains, Joshua trees, the brittle bones of ghost towns and forgotten dreams. But tonight, it felt like the world had fallen away. There was just Hank, the truck, and the road. He took a sip from his dented thermos, the coffee inside long since cooled. Bitter, but it did the job. He grimaced, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, and reached over to adjust the CB radio volume. It had been mostly dead all night, dead air, just static and silence. But now there was something else. It began faintly just beneath the white noise. A whisper threaded through the static. "Breaker, breaker, help!" Hank leaned in, brow furrowed. He turned the volume knob slightly. Mile marker 212. He sat up, a slow tension building in his chest. The voice was thin, like it had been traveling through a tunnel of sand and years. Male, young, maybe, hard to tell. It didn't sound like a prank, but it didn't sound right either. He picked up the mic. "Say again?" he asked, his voice gravelly and low, steady despite the unease creeping up his spine. "You out there, driver? You all right?" No response, just the crackle of empty channels. "Come back?" he said again. Nothing. He waited, the mic still in his hand, staring into the night ahead. The road stretched out like a black river, featureless and silent. He sighed and set the mic down, more annoyed than concerned. Probably kids screwing around, or a busted signal bouncing off God knows what out here in the middle of nowhere. He rubbed his face and took another sip of coffee. The taste hit harder this time, stale and bitter, but it helped keep him grounded. He flipped the CB off and leaned back in the seat. Let it go. But the quiet didn't last long. A few miles later, the radio turned itself back on. No joke, no hands. The dial just turned, and the speaker hissed to life. Then came the voice again. Only this time, it said, "Hank, help me." He froze. The steering wheel creaked beneath his tightening grip. He hadn't imagined that. He couldn't have. That voice said his name, his actual name. Not driver or breaker, but Hank. Plain as day, on an open CB channel. No one used real names on the air, not unless they knew you, and no one should have known he was out here tonight. His jaw clenched. He scanned the mirrors again. Far behind him, a flicker of light. Headlights, maybe? Just a glimmer. Then they were gone, swallowed by the night like they'd never been there at all. A cold prickle crawled up the back of his neck. He grunted and flicked the CB off again, this time with a little more force. He didn't like games. He especially didn't like this kind of game. But the silence that followed wasn't comfort. It was pressure. thick and heavy, like the air before a tornado touches down, like the moment just before something terrible happens. He shook his head, trying to dismiss the chill in his bones. "You're tired," he muttered to himself. "That's all, just tired." But he couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed, that the road he'd always trusted, always counted on to take him from one point to the next, had just shifted, and somewhere out there in the dark, something was calling him by name. The miles ticked by, but the unease didn't fade. Hank kept his eyes on the road, but his thoughts circled back again and again to that voice. The CB remained silent now, off, cold, just like he'd left it. But his nerves were taut like overstrung guitar strings. The air inside the cab had shifted, the kind of shift you couldn't explain with words.